Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to get started by guiding you in a loving kindness meditation. Welcome. Welcome to everyone who's online as well. Nice to see you guys all here this morning. We'll start with loving kindness meditation, first doing the chanting, easing into breathing mindfulness meditation, and then I'll have that period of time where we'll just be doing a little bit of breathing mindfulness meditation. Then I'll guide you in loving kindness meditation, back to breathing mindfulness, and then back to the chanting. It's kind of like a loving kindness sandwich with loving kindness in the middle and the lettuce and tomatoes, the breathing mindfulness meditation on both sides, and then the bread's like the chanting, holding it all together, right? So if you guys would like to join for meditation, you're more than welcome. And then afterwards, I will share with you and teach you what loving kindness meditation is, and using the words of the Buddha and some other things to show you how it fits into your life practice. Then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and I'm going to teach you how to identify your cravings, desires, attachments, how to almost go in and surgically remove them out of the mind. Then we're going to take our lunch break, and then we'll come back this afternoon and I'll teach you the 4 healthy mental states. They're called the Brahma Viharas: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. This is where you learn about the symptoms, certain symptoms that are in the mind, and then how to apply these healthy mental states in order to remedy these. This is where the Buddha oftentimes gets the reputation of being like a doctor, because there's a symptom and then there's a prescription that you apply, and you can be your own doctor, right? You can actually see this for yourself. So if you'd like to join for meditation, you're welcome to. Just take a position, either seated, lying, or standing, and then I'll guide you. And if you'd like to join in chanting, you're more than welcome. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Iti pisu Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammono Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Then I'll be back with guidance on loving kindness meditation. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Repeat these affirmations in the mind on the out breath. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May we be peaceful. May we be safe. May we be well. May we be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May my family, friends, and neighbors be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May all those who have harmed me be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May all those who I have harmed be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May all beings, wherever they reside, be peaceful. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free of discontentedness in the suffering it causes. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath. cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Hotang Mahakevanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakevata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to you guys. Good morning. Nice to see all of you guys. Nice to see you guys online as well. Welcome to our class today here at Wat Tung Yu. This is the second day of a 5-day course where I'm teaching harmony in relationships, helping you to understand the teachings of the Buddha in order to develop harmony in your relationships. And this is really rewarding and very fulfilling to have relationships where they can be at ease and you don't have to have hostility or bitterness and anger in your relationships. So this meditation that we just did and that we did yesterday as well is a key component to your life practice in order to help you develop loving kindness in the mind and develop harmonious relationships. There's 4 meditations that the Buddha essentially taught as part of his teachings that will help you to cultivate certain wholesome qualities and eliminate certain unwholesome qualities. You may have already been taught breathing mindfulness meditation and done this with me at various times. Breathing mindfulness meditation is a real foundation in your meditation practice. This is where you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment, and you're developing mindfulness or awareness of mind and concentration. An individual usually builds this up for a good 4 to 6 weeks before they bring in the next meditation, which is loving kindness. Loving kindness meditation is helping to eliminate anger, hatred, ill will, and all those lesser versions. And it's helping you to cultivate loving kindness for all beings, which loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. These two combined, they're addressing 2 of the 3 major issues. If you remember yesterday when we talked about the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires, we talked about craving, anger, and ignorance. Well, breathing mindfulness meditation is addressing the craving. The loving kindness meditation is addressing the anger. And then the way that you're addressing the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality is by cultivating wisdom, not believing in the teachings. So these are the 2 meditations that you might have learned up to this point. And then there's these others that I teach at different times, and I have them documented in the book series and different things like that. These are specialized meditations that are only needed in unique situations. Say somebody is on this path and they maybe have 5 or 10 different boyfriends or girlfriends, and they realize, oh my goodness, this is so unwise. I should only have one. But they have all this sexual craving. So you can use the meditation to eliminate sexual craving to bring that down so that then you could only have one partner. Or say you have one partner or you have no partner and you're looking to really get rid of any kind of sexual cravings that are coming up, because they produce agitation in the mind, right? If you're wanting sex and you can't have it, it's going to produce agitation because of that craving, desire, attachment. So you can use this meditation to eliminate any kind of sexual desire that you might be having in your mind if you're ready to eliminate that 100%. And then there's this meditation to realize non-self that will help you eliminate this fetter or this taint or pollution of personal existence view. There's other things that you need, but this is one of the things that you can use in order to help you eliminate personal existence view and cultivate this impermanence through eradicating the conceit I am. Well, let's first talk about what loving kindness is so that you can understand what this is before we actually talk about meditating and why it's important. What loving kindness is it's active goodwill towards all beings without judgment, including this being who you are, right? All beings, human beings, animals, every single being, all the 5 realms of existence, the hell beings, the animals, afflicted spirits, human beings, and heavenly beings, that you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. This is an antidote or wholesome root or remedy to anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions too. We tend to talk about these pollutions as very strong things like anger, hatred, ill will, because it helps you to understand what it is. But this same poison produces frustration and irritation and annoyance and, these kinds of things, even dislike. If you have dislike towards another being, this is coming from your cravings, yes, but there's this anger that we refer to, which the lesser version of that would be dislike, right? Where you just dislike somebody, right? By the time you get to enlightenment, you will have eradicated all of that, where you won't even have the slightest dislike for another being. So this is the antidote to all of that. It helps you eliminate harshness, bitterness, hostility, and resentment in the mind. By cultivating this in your mind, you'll notice that you won't experience the hostility and bitterness and aggression towards others. It's also part of the Brahma Viharas. This term Brahma Vihara, I'll talk to you about it this afternoon to help you understand what that means, but just understand that it's part of the Brahma Viharas. So, as I've mentioned before, the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching of the Buddha, where all the other teachings plug into it. And you can see where loving kindness plugs into the Eightfold Path. If you remember back to yesterday when I taught the Eightfold Path, if you go back to right intention, where the Buddha says that you need to cultivate the intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, which non-ill will is a double negative, so that's goodwill. And loving kindness is goodwill. And harmlessness as well, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm. Well, how would you be able to practice right intention or right thinking or right thought of having goodwill towards all beings if you didn't have a tool or technique to be able to help you do that? So the loving kindness meditation is helping you to be able to practice something like right intention. It's also helping you to practice right speech, because if you remember back to the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, the Buddha teaches you to speak with a mind of loving kindness. That's going to help you to be able to have harmonious relationships by speaking with a mind of loving kindness. The opposite of that would be to speak with a mind of inner hate. And you're not interested in doing that because that's going to promote unwholesome results in your life, because it's an unwise decision to speak through anger, hatred, ill will, and all those lesser versions. So the loving kindness meditation is helping you to be able to practice right speech, that you can be more loving and more kind in the way that you interact and speak with others. And then if you think even to right action, right? Right action, even though I don't have it here on this visual aid, if you think back to right action, the Buddha teaches about eliminating killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. There needs to be a certain amount of anger and hatred and ill will towards others to kill a living being, to steal from them, or to have sexual misconduct where you're causing harm to others through your sexual activity. There needs to be a certain amount of anger and ill will in the mind to do that. So loving kindness meditation is helping you to really catapult you to be able to practice right intention, right speech, and right action. We could even look at right livelihood if we like, right? Right livelihood, if somebody's selling weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness or poisons, there needs to be a certain amount of anger and hatred involved to do that, right? So loving kindness meditation is really helping you to clean up your unwise decisions around your moral conduct. Here, this is a teaching from the Buddha where he's teaching his monks, where prior to this, he was explaining to them the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And he was saying, okay, you guys should speak at the proper time. What you say is true. You speak gentle, you speak beneficially with a mind of loving kindness. And he was reminding them that, hey, even though you should speak this way, other people are not going to speak that way with you all the time. Some people are going to speak untimely. Some people are going to speak falsehoods. Some people are going to speak harsh. Some people are going to speak unbeneficially. Some people are going to speak with a mind of inner hate. And then he says, okay, when they're speaking to you that way, this is what you should do. That herein, monks, you should train thus. Our minds will remain unaffected. We shall utter no evil words. We shall reside compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, without inner hate. We shall reside enveloping that person with a mind filled with loving kindness. And starting with him, we shall reside enveloping the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with loving kindness, abundant, joyful, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train monks. So when other people are speaking to you bitter and harsh and hostile, if you go to anger and hatred, this is your mind's pollutions. This is your defilements. This is the mind craving, I want everybody to speak to me in a certain way. And when they don't, I'm not getting what I want. So therefore, my anger is going to arise. But you're trying to do something different now. You're trying to rewire the mind. That when somebody is bitter and harsh and hostile with you, you have compassion for them, which is concern for their misfortune. It's so unfortunate that this person lacks the wisdom to realize how much harm they're causing in the world. It's so unfortunate that they lack wisdom to realize they're causing harm to themselves, because anytime they put out bitterness and hostility, that's what's going to come back to them. So if you can arise this compassion and loving kindness for that being, it can actually help you to reside peaceful and joyful, that you don't need to get angry. You don't need to have a craving for everyone in the world to talk a certain way, because it's just not possible with the universal truth of impermanence. There's going to be some people who are impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful. And that's unfortunate that you're in that situation, but no reason to get angry about it. That doesn't solve anything. Just have loving kindness for this person. Have compassion. So unfortunate that they haven't learned these teachings. It's so unfortunate they haven't been exposed to the natural law of karma to realize that what they're putting out is just going to come back to them over and over and over again. But if you become bitter and harsh and hostile with them, now it's going to just come back to you. So that's why the Buddha is teaching that when other people speak untimely, untrue, harsh, unbeneficially, and with a mind of inner hate, that you reside with compassion and loving kindness towards them. And it doesn't mean that you talk with them, right? If somebody's being bitter, harsh, and hostile, oftentimes the best thing to do is just walk away. There's nothing that you're going to say that's going to get through to their mind anyway, so just walk away, right? If you sit there and you just fight it out and argue with them, it's just going to make things worse. So this is the Buddha explaining to you what you should do when somebody's speaking to you in unwise ways. But again, how would you be able to have loving kindness for somebody in that situation if you didn't have a tool or technique or a way to be able to help you cultivate this loving kindness? So that's what the loving kindness meditation is for, is to be able to help you to be able to cultivate your loving kindness. So when you're in those situations, you can be more loving and kind. Right now, it's probably like potentially very challenging for you to be in a situation if someone's being bitter, harsh, and hostile with you to maintain your loving kindness. It's probably really hard because your mind doesn't have this loving kindness permeating in the mind. But if you implement loving kindness meditation, you can permeate this in the mind. You can cultivate the mind so that in those situations, you can maintain your loving kindness and you can maintain your peace and joy in those situations too. Your mind doesn't need to be shaken up by what other people say or what other people do. Okay, here's some more words from the Buddha on loving kindness meditation. I'm sharing these with you so that you can build confidence that the Buddha did indeed teach loving kindness meditation, and it's an important part of the path. This first one here, he's talking to his son, Rahula. Sometimes the people think that the Buddha left his family and never came back. This isn't actually true. He left for 6 years, but then he ends up coming back to that part of the world. And his son ordains with him. His wife ordains with him. His stepmother, which was ultimately his mother, since his mother died when he was 7 days old, and other cousins and brother-in-laws and things like this, they all ordained with him, and they ended up getting to enlightenment during his lifetime. So here he's speaking to his son Rahula. He says, Rahula, develop meditation on loving kindness, for when you develop meditation on loving kindness, any ill will be abandoned. This is how a Buddha speaks, very clear, very concise. You don't have to interpret it. You don't have to figure it out. He's telling you very closely what he did in order to promote this enlightened mental state and produce this enlightened mental state, is that he practiced loving kindness meditation because it abandoned his ill will, his anger, because he had that prior to enlightenment. He had anger and hatred and ill will and all those lesser versions, but it was loving kindness meditation that fixed that, and he knew that, so that's what he shared. He shared that with other people, and here you can see it very clearly. You don't need to interpret it or figure out what he's saying. He's just saying it very clearly. Then he says, loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. Again, very clear, very concise, that you develop loving kindness in the mind, but then you're going to need to go out into the world and practice loving kindness. It's not just the meditation. You're going to need to practice in day-to-day life as well. So here he's talking to his ordained students, and I'll give you the backstory that what he's saying before this is that during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were many different teachers who were teaching teachings that were claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. He wasn't the only teacher. You might think that he was the only teacher because if a Buddha existed in the world, you'd probably be interested in studying with that person. But not everybody knew that he was a Buddha, right? So there were various teachers that were teaching various teachings, and they were claiming that it was their teachings that lead to enlightenment. And those students would oftentimes get together with the Buddhist students because they would all go out into the community. They would collect up food for donations in the morning, and then they would go sit down somewhere in some park, and they would all be eating together, the different students from different teachers. And they would be talking and discussing the teachings and so forth and so on. So the Buddha is saying to his students, suppose they should ask, meaning suppose those other students from those other teachers should ask, but what, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise and arisen anger is abandoned? You should answer, the liberation of mind by loving kindness. For one who attends carefully to the liberation of the mind by loving kindness, unarisen anger does not arise and arisen anger is abandoned. This, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise and arisen anger is abandoned. So what he's saying is that this unarisen anger, meaning you have this mental object, this fetter, this pollution, this deeply rooted container in your mind of ill will. Like right now, you're not angry, you're not frustrated, you're just listening to me talk. But at any point, anything that happens in the world, something could trigger that deeply rooted container of ill will, and it could arise in the mind until you eradicate it. When you eradicate that container, that mental object of ill will, it won't arise. It'll be impossible for your mind to become angry. But right now, that is unarisen anger. You have a mental object or this deeply rooted container of ill will that's in the mind, and it could arise at any time. And the Buddha is saying, what's the reason why that doesn't arise? Well, it's loving kindness meditation that ensures that that does not arise, and you can eradicate it and break it up and get it out of the mind. But then he also says, anger that has arisen, any anger that arises in your mind, how do you get rid of it? How do you abandon it? Loving kindness meditation. So this is where you can see that there's a certain symptom. If you're noticing your mind's angry or agitated or frustrated about something, you can bring in loving kindness meditation and practice loving kindness in a day-to-day life. And this is what will eradicate that anger from the mind. So say you're out and about and you're noticing some anger come up, right? You can bring in the loving kindness. Say you're in the back of a taxi, right? And this taxi driver is playing all kinds of loud music that you're starting to get frustrated because of your craving and you don't like this music. Well, if you're noticing this frustration coming up, you can cut that off and let it go, and you can arise this loving kindness. And rather than being, harsh and bitter and hostile to the taxi driver and, demanding that he turns off the music, you could say, excuse me, sir, excuse me, ma'am, would it be possible for you to turn the music down a little bit? Right? You could just be polite and respectful, bringing up this loving kindness, right? Or maybe you have a bottle of water in your bag, and maybe you offer them a bottle of water and you say, here you go, ma'am, or here you go, sir, I'd like to offer you this water. And then they're like, oh, thank you so much. And then after you offer the water, you say, would it be possible for you to turn the music down? Right? So you're practicing generosity, you're practicing loving kindness, and you're practicing wisdom. You're not giving them the water because you expect them to turn off the music or turn down the music, but you're practicing generosity to just practice generosity to enhance the quality of your mind. But then after having done so, you could easily ask, would it be possible for you to turn down the music, rather than being demanding or forceful or angry in the way that you maybe talk to this person, expecting that the things in the taxi should be exactly the way you want them to be. Instead, you can understand this is just some impermanence. Let me be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, arise some loving kindness, and make a request if they could turn down the music. Right? This is the way you can now function, where in the past we may not have functioned that way. And now you'd like to do something different. You'd like to train your mind to do something different. So this anger that arises, you would like to bring in some loving kindness in the moment and in meditation too. If you're noticing the general condition of your mind is kind of agitated and annoyed, bring in some loving kindness meditation. If you're noticing somebody at work that you're having difficulties with, where your relationships are kind of rubbing, bring in some loving kindness meditation. I'm going to teach you how to do that, where you can include them into your meditation. Because so far you've just heard me using these general statements of individuals, but you're going to be able to customize your meditation based on individuals that you're struggling to have healthy relationships with. And now when you're in an environment where you're having anger towards other people, you can eliminate that through including them in your loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life with them. So the way that we do loving kindness meditation is, as you guys have experienced yesterday and today, is we start with chanting to ease in. Then we use breathing mindfulness meditation to start getting this awareness of the breath, that you're breathing in nice and slow, and then you're breathing out nice and slow, nice and gradual, nice gradual breath, a nice, steady, consistent pace. But then after about 3-5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, up to you, however long you do breathing mindfulness meditation, you'd like to bring in these affirmations. And these affirmations are going to be unique to you. In the classes like this, I'm using these general affirmations so that they apply to all of us, but you would like to customize your meditation, that you include these rings, these successively wider and wider rings, starting with yourself, but then going wider and wider and wider until you ultimately get to all beings. And the way you would like to structure this is oftentimes people will put 1 or 2 rings in there of people they already have loving kindness for, like maybe your parents or your siblings or something like this, your children, things like this, so that it kind of bubbles up the loving kindness. Then you like to go to like 1 or 2 rings of people you're more neutral about. Maybe like your neighbors, your coworkers. You don't hate them, but you don't necessarily love them either, right? It's just kind of like, yeah, we're okay, but there's not a whole lot of loving kindness there. So you would like to bring in kind of that neutral group that you're not angry at, but you don't exactly have overwhelming loving kindness for them either. And then you'd like to bring in kind of 1 or 2 rings of individuals that you do have hatred for, that you do have resentment for. Right? People that you find it very challenging to be around. And this could be a coworker, it could be a neighbor, it could be somebody in your past that you'll never ever see again. It could be someone who's actually dead and gone, right? If your mind's holding on to any anger or any hatred for any being whatsoever, it's not liberated from the anger, hatred, ill will. You still have that container, that fetter of ill will. So you would like to uproot this in your mind. When I first started loving kindness meditation, I used to include my mom into this because I had a lot of resentment and hostility towards my mom. So you can put people in here. You can put your parents. You can put, like, there were times when I was in business and employees, there would be certain thing going on with an employee. So I would put them in there for 2 or 3 or 4 days, or maybe on my way to work, someone would cut me off in traffic and I got a little bit angry. I don't even know that person's name. And I would put them into the loving kindness meditation for 2 or 3 days just to make sure that anger didn't get seated in the mind. Or there was a time when the landlord in my business, he came in and he actually threatened to kill me in front of my employees and in front of my customers. He was up in my face, like talking really loud and spitting in my face and all these kinds of things. And he threatened to kill me, right? So for probably about 4 or 5 days, he was in the loving kindness meditation. He didn't know it, but I needed to make sure that I didn't hold on to any anger in this situation. So you can change this, right? It's a dynamic type of meditation. It's going to have you as first, and it's going to have all beings as last. But the middle section, you can customize this. And typically, you're going to need to have people in there for a consistent long-term period in order to really create real change. So like for my mom, for example, because there was a lot of resentment and hostility growing up as a child, she was in my meditation for a good 6 months, very consistently. And I would sometimes even do her more than once. So I would say, may mom be peaceful, safe, well, free of discontentedness. May mom be peaceful. I would do it multiple times. And I also had a lot of negative self-talk in my own mind when I first got started. So I would do myself sometimes more than once. So I would do, may I be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. Then I do myself again. Then I would do my mom. Then I do my mom again. And then sometimes I would just go to all beings. at the end of that. I would just focus on me and my mom. And that was really challenging enough. And that was enough for me in that particular meditation. So you're going to need to change this, but know that it's not going to be instantaneous improvement. So like with my mom, it took 6 months to really transform the mind and get to the point where now when I was around her, I could be more loving and I could be more kind when I was around her, where I wasn't able to do that in the past. So it took me gradually training my mind over time to be able to wear that anger away, that resentment away from my childhood. So these rings that you create here on the visual aid, I'm just using may I, we, and all beings just to kind of show you the structure. But you would like to have about 6 to 8 rings. That's usually ideal. If you'd like to start with 3 or 4, start with 3 or 4. It's up to you. But anything more than about 6 or 8, it's kind of like too much for the mind to deal with in that particular meditation. So you'd like to kind of keep it to about 6 or 8 rings. Okay, so this is how you do loving kindness meditation. And then after that loving kindness meditation, you would like to then go back to some breathing mindfulness meditation potentially. The reason why that's in there is because what you might notice is when you start doing these rings, it kind of bubbles up some things in the mind. It's kind of like all through our life, we've been sweeping the dust under the carpet. And now when you start doing this meditation, it's like pulling the carpet back and the dust starts flying up into your mouth. It's like you're kind of choking on this anger, because I would start a meditation sometimes and I wasn't angry at my mom at that particular moment. But then when I would finish the meditation, I'd be angry. I'd be like remembering all the things that happened from when I was a childhood, and it would bubble up a lot of things in my mind and I had to deal with it. So the breathing mindfulness meditation at the end is there to kind of cut off and let go of anything that's coming up during your meditation. So if you're experiencing that, it's actually really good, because that means it's buried in your mind and you've got to clear it out. So if you're noticing the bubbling up of certain resentful feelings or anger or other types of things like that with this meditation, perfect. That means it's working, and continue to do it. And then you have that breathing mindfulness meditation on the backside to be able to help you kind of stabilize the mind and get the mind kind of stable again. But as you practice this more and more, you're going to ultimately get to a point where there's more loving kindness in the mind than anger. You might get to the end of your loving kindness meditation and the loving kindness is just permeating in the mind. The mind is just enveloped with loving kindness. This can occur as you develop this meditation more and more. If that's the case, there's no reason to do your breathing mindfulness meditation at the end. You can leave that off. That's an optional thing. You can customize this meditation based on your individual needs. So if you need breathing mindfulness meditation at the end of your loving kindness, go ahead and do it. Use it. But if you're noticing at the end of your loving kindness meditation that you've got the loving kindness permeating in the mind, there's no reason to put in the breathing mindfulness meditation at the end unless you would just like to do it, right? So it's up to you how you customize this. And then you might go back to the chanting at the end, depending on how you'd like to do that. So any questions on loving kindness meditation, either here at the temple, or those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting them into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. Okay, it looks like Hugo has a question. How do I cut and let go of a mind object and resume, I think you're saying concentration there. So anything that comes up into the mind, like a thought or an idea, as that's coming up, you need to physically train the mind that you can apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. Redirect the mind back to the breath. That's what you would like to do. Is the mind is going to be a master at longing, yearning, and chasing after things. And you're cutting that off, letting it go, and bringing the mind back to the breath. That's what breathing mindfulness meditation is. And then in daily life, you can practice that same quality and that same skill. And it's going to take time for you to be able to get to the point where the mind can do this easily and readily. It's not something simple, particularly with the deeper held cravings. So you're going to need this gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress to be able to do that. you can actually redirect the mind too. This is something that you do particularly early on. Over time, you'll be able to internally cut it off. Like if you're on a bus or something, you could just internally cut it off. Boom, cut it off in the mind. But as you're getting going with this, you might need to redirect the mind. So say you're, at a stoplight and somebody next to you has loud music. You know that loud music isn't what's causing your discontentedness. It's your craving, desire, attachment. But you notice that this discontentedness is starting to come up in the mind. You can redirect the mind. Just look to a different direction, right? Like, oh, wow, look at those birds over there. Those geese look really beautiful. Oh, those swans in that lake are really beautiful. Wow, that's amazing, right? So you just refocus the mind to something else. Don't focus on the music, rather than just sit there and scowl at this person and look at their car, hoping that they get a ticket when they go down the road, or they get a flat tire or something like this. Instead of wishing ill will on them, you can just redirect the mind and look somewhere else and focus the mind there, right? So this loving kindness meditation will be able to help you arise this loving kindness, so that, as I gave you that example of how when somebody cut me off in traffic, when I was first learning how to do loving kindness meditation, I needed to put them in my loving kindness meditation for a period of time. What you'll notice with these affirmations is they tend to be in the mind quite readily, so that then in the future, what I would do is when somebody would cut me off in traffic, like in the car, I would say, "May you be well." Rather than like, honk, 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 what are you doing? Get out of my lane. Instead of doing that kind of thing, these affirmations can kick in. If you've been doing this meditation regularly, you can just do it right there. Like as you're driving, somebody cut in front of me, I'd be like, all right, brother, the lane's yours. Take it. May you be well. May you have a great day. Rather than being angry or bitter and harsh. And this will really help you transform your mind in the moment, because the mind's going to want to get angry perhaps because of its craving, but you would like to rewire the mind here with this meditation. And then in daily life, also be rewiring the mind. And you can use these affirmations. May you be well, sir. May you be well, ma'am. Wherever you're going, may you be safe, right? Instead of, I hope you get a ticket, right? I hope you get a flat tire when you go down the road. That's the ill will that's coming in. You would like to transform that and start thinking differently. One of the things you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're changing your perspective about the world and how you relate with the world. That rather than having these disgruntled thoughts, that you're changing your perspective to now have positive and uplifting thoughts. And this just takes time to train your mind to do this. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions here, so you guys must be understanding this to a certain degree. So what I'm going to do is just in this portion of our class on loving kindness meditation, now that we've done a loving kindness meditation, and now that you understand a bit about it here with the words of the Buddha and the things that I've shared with you, I would encourage you to start developing this in your meditation practice. If you're developing 2 or 3 sessions per day, this should be at least one of them. And particularly in the morning is really good to do loving kindness meditation, so that you can go out into the world being more loving and kind. But you can really put it in anywhere. You could do 2 or 3 sessions. Like if you're going through a particularly hard period of time where you're angry a lot, you're frustrated, you're agitated, you might be doing 2 or 3 loving kindness meditations for a period of time. Your meditation practice is dynamic, and you can change it and adjust it as you need based on what's going on in your mind. And that's where your mindfulness comes in. If you have your awareness of mind and you know that you've been generally agitated and annoyed for several days or a week or 2, this is an ideal time to bring in loving kindness meditation, increase that, and really get that going. And then when you're noticing that the anger is starting to subside, keep that going for a little bit longer, just to kind of stamp it out as much as possible. And then maybe go to just 1 loving kindness meditation per day at that point. So you can ebb and flow this and adjust this and tweak it as you need. And you use your mindfulness or awareness of mind to be able to help you decide what would be wise in any given situation. Like say you normally do loving kindness meditation in the morning, and that's what you just did in the morning. But then say tonight at 6 p.m. you get a phone call and some news comes to you, and you notice all this anger arising. Even though you were planning to do breathing mindfulness meditation, hey, you know the remedy here for that anger that you are experiencing at 6 p.m. go into a loving kindness meditation at that time instead of doing your breathing mindfulness, which you would normally have done, right? So you can invoke loving kindness meditation at any point based on what you're observing with your own mind. And that's where you are in control of your own practice. It's your practice, and you'll need to understand how and when to invoke something like loving kindness meditation. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of a break here for you guys to be able to go out and stretch and get some snacks or whatever it is you'd like to do. It's about 10 minutes after 10. So let's come back at 10:30, give you guys about a 25-minute break, and we'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay? Thank you so much.